Hey there, it's been a while since I made a video, but just feel like I need to make another one. And it's going to repeat quite a bit of what I said, but I'm going to try to condense it because people have very short attention spans nowadays. So, it it's becoming more and more apparent that things are speeding up, and the shit's really hitting the fan here with everything. Um, the the most pressing issue, I think, is the climate and abrupt climate change, and what people need to realize is that this is happening not in a linear fashion, but in an exponential fashion. There are feedback loops, especially the ice in the northern Arctic, the albino effect, where the more ice is white and it reflects the energy of the sun coming in, and this is shrinking again at an exponential rate. And there's been Paul Beckwith, who I consider to be the most objective voice in all of this climate change stuff. He predicts that by the year 2020 or 2022, he said that he thinks that it's going to be the first blue ocean event at the North Pole, which means that there will be, for a part of that year, there will be no ice, zero ice at the North Pole. Now, anyone that has any intuition or any common sense would think, wow, no ice on the North Pole. That sounds like a big thing. Just because it's somewhere else, not in my direct experience, doesn't mean that it's not going to affect me. So when this happens, the ocean will be absorbing so much of that energy that used to be deflected. Millions of square kilometers used to be. And now, so when you think about a drink with ice cubes in it, it takes quite a while for those ice cubes. The temperature of the water, of the drink, stays cold as long as as long as there's still a little bit of ice in it. But as soon as that ice goes away, the temperature of that drink goes up really, really fast. And that's what's going to happen. And this is going to push that. This is just one of the many, many self-enforcing feedback loops that cause this exponential change. And when that happens, it's going to be like here on the exponential, like it's going to be catastrophic. So I'm not here to convince you that global warming, abrupt climate change is happening. It is happening. And it's happening way faster than just about everyone that's talking about it or even knows anything about it. It's happening really fast. So we don't have much time. We really are. We really need to accept the fact that we are going to go extinct. We are on the verge of extinction, and it's going to be way faster than people are thinking, or the models, or that most people don't even. Anyway, we need to prepare, and I'm going to suggest the quickest way to prepare for this, because the human species is about to go through an unprecedented era of suffering. It's going to be the apocalypse. It really is. And so what's the best way to do it? Well, the problem, there's one fundamental issue that has caused this problem that we have. And the quickest way, like when I'm saying prepare, I mean at the most fundamental level, to be prepared. And it's at this most fundamental level that I'm going to address that is the cause of all of the problems that's going on right now. And here is the fundamental problem. So in Hinduism, which is the oldest religion on the planet, there's a thing called, there's three major things. There's a thing called Maya, and Maya is, in Hinduism, the veil that's pulled over the reality that fools consciousness into believing that this other thing is actually real. And it's exactly the same as when we're watching a movie, we forget who we are. We forget that we are sitting in a movie theater, and we become so involved in the movie that we basically lose self-awareness, and our awareness is out on the movie. So the movie at that point is our reality, and the three-dimensional realm that we're in has moved to the back, and it's not, you're not aware of it anymore. So that's Maya in a nutshell. And again, all of these processes are just cycles of the same fundamental thing that's going on here. That's just another model of what is going on at this deeper, bigger level. So, and then in Hinduism, there's Brahman and there's Atman. And Brahman is the absolute, the reality, the absolute that requires nothing relative to it to exist. And the Atman is, in its essence, its incarnation. It's the representation of the absolute. It's a relative experience of the absolute. It's an expression. Okay, so and this is Brahman and Atman is exactly the same situation as when Christ said, I and the Father are one. Jesus was God incarnate, God being the absolute, and Jesus, or the physical realm, being the representation of the absolute. So here is a very powerful analogy that I've used many times, but I think it's the best. So here's an analogy of what the fundamental issue is. And I'm going to work this in with science too. So the fundamental issue is that, imagine you're looking into a mirror. You can say, that's me, while simultaneously possessing the inherent intuition that I am not that. Okay? So the mirror image is me, but I'm not that. Right? So what's happened is that our human consciousness has mistaken the mirror realm to be the reality, to be the fundamental absolute on which everything else arises or is based upon. And that is the fundamental incorrect assumption that is causing all of the suffering on the planet. There's one. It's just this one thing that's causing everything else to spin off. So here's a little bit of science to maybe back this up. Quantum physics, which has been around for almost 100 years now, has more or less proven that the physical realm is not fundamental, okay? But because we're so mired in, human consciousness is so convinced by Maya, the illusioner, the Satan, the great deceiver, if you will, that this is that the physical realm is fundamental, that the findings in quantum physics have not caught on. It's just too bizarre to even talk about even. So I've done a lot of research on that, read a lot of books. If you want to, it's very complicated, and even the quantum physicists don't really understand it. But some of the founders of quantum physics really struggled with trying to make sense of what this means. And Maxwell Planck, who is considered one of the founders of quantum mechanics, said this: "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." Now, this is one of the most brilliant people on the planet. There were others. Niels Bohr also looked to spirituality to try to figure out what the heck this actually meant, the findings in quantum physics. And David Bohm, also a giant in quantum physics, sought out a spiritual teacher, Jiddu Krishnamurti, to try to understand what this really meant. And what it really meant is that that the physical realm only exists relative to consciousness. Physical particles do not exist in and of themselves. There's no physicality here prior to consciousness. Consciousness is prior. So, going back to the mirror analogy, the mirror realm is the physical realm. The physical realm is dependent upon that which is looking into the mirror. Okay, so here is where you need to take this step back a notch. So what I'm saying is that the misinterpretation of this, of this especially, being who I really am, and not, so this body is the mirror. It's the reflection, it's the incarnation of the absolute, the divinity, the Brahman. So fundamentally, what you really are, is divine and requires nothing relative to it to exist. So once you realize this, all fear of death goes away, and basically all the problems that you have go away. But what happened with human consciousness is that it did come to this realization that it's not the mirror. The mirror realm is not fundamental reality. But falling back into delusion, knowing that it required something relative to it to exist, deep down, at the very fundamental level of consciousness, we know we are not that. we know this is me, but I am not that. Just like we know when we look into a mirror, inherently, just in that deep lying intuition, we don't even have to, it's ridiculous to even say, oh yeah, well that's really me, right? But we have this understanding all the time. But the thing is, when we look for what is relative, like what is this relative to, thinking that this is fundamental reality, well, we look out and we see that there's nothing, we can't see what is looking out of our own eyes. Do you see what I mean? All it takes is to look at what is looking into the mirror, to recognize that which is looking into the mirror. Because that which is looking into the mirror is not dependent upon the mirror realm, but the mirror realm is dependent upon this. So what happened is that consciousness all of a sudden had this flash, I'm not this. But what am I then? And it's that moment where we knew that this was relative existence, that this physical realm is relative to something else. But we couldn't see anything else but the physical realm because of our delusion. So the best thing we could do is make up something that's relative to the physical realm that isn't physical. Do you understand? To try to, it's the creation of a Ponzi scheme, because we know that this does not exist in and of itself. It requires something relative to it, more fundamental. But not seeing, not recognizing that which is looking out of our own eyes, our own consciousness, we projected another mirror. That's all we could do, was project something else, even less real than this reality, to try to make it seem like this is real. Do you understand what I mean? We projected, and what is that? That's thought. So now we have something that's representing, that is somehow connected to this realm. And now there's an object there, and now we have this something that's relative to it, tree, that's in our consciousness. So now we have a relative scheme, right? Oh, everything's good but it's a Ponzi scheme. It's not going to last because we haven't found reality yet. We've just projected another level of Maya. Do you see what I mean? Now, if you do, can you see? Now, I could go on for hours and days talking about how this ties into the ego, how it ties into how we're so addicted to the screen. Like, the screen is just trying somehow to reinforce this Ponzi scheme of looking at yourself. Oh, look, I'm real. Look at everyone. Look at me. This is real, and we're just reinforcing each other's. And it's this attachment to our thoughts. 50,000 thoughts a day. That's this Ponzi scheme of a mirror facing a mirror. That's basically what it is. This image is trying to reinforce the reality of this image, and it's just this is how we've become so addicted. Ponzi schemes need this constant bouncing back and forth, if you will, reinforcing the illusion by another illusion, and it just needs to keep going faster and faster and faster and adding on to itself. And this is exactly what's happened. Look at us. Look at us. There's no stillness. There's no silence. We're constantly distracted. And this is all looking for what's real. We're caught up in this Ponzi scheme of And so there's nothing that can be done within this realm. There's no system of thought that's going to try to make things better, because this isn't even real. The way we have to do it to find the peace and the reality and the inherent happiness that's within all of us is to look inward, not outward. We need to recognize what is looking into the mirror. And once we do that, there will be peace. There is peace right here, right now, in the stillness. But we don't have any stillness in our consciousness. We're not trying to put our awareness on the awareness that's looking through your eyes and my eyes, these eyes and those eyes and those eyes. It's the same consciousness. So we have to recognize what's looking into the mirror. I am not my thoughts. I am not my senses. So you see now that everything that everyone does is propping up the Ponzi scheme, but it's all collapsing. All systems of thought, everything is just a model of this fundamental process, and everything's going on an exponential, like everything right now is heading to the same exponential course, because the Ponzi scheme, all Ponzi schemes eventually end. And this is the ultimate Ponzi scheme. It's your thoughts trying to make this reality, this physical realm, trying to make it real. But it's just more Maya. It's just more illusion. So the quickest way, listen, there's not much time here. The quickest way to find happiness and be at peace through all of this is to not try to change the mirror image, because it has nothing to do with you. You are, this is where the idea of detachment in Buddhism comes from. You need to recognize that what's happening in this movie, you can have it not affect you at all. But it seems so real, doesn't it? It seems very real. But it's not. So you have to find ultimate peace through all of this collapse of this Ponzi scheme. You have to find the space between your thoughts. This is what I did. This is what my teacher, my guru, Ramana Maharshi, was an enlightened being that died in 1950. Find the space between your thoughts. And the fact that you might not be able to find any silence and peace in your thoughts is a symptom. Our addiction to the screen is the symptom of this fundamental issue of not knowing what reality is and not finding just pure thought-free awareness. That which is looking into the mirror is not affected by what happens in the mirror realm. So mind will want to try to keep you in this. The power of Maya, of Satan, or whatever you want to call it, of the illusion is very, very strong. And this is where the difference between being interested in something and being happy. Would you rather be interested? Because what's going on right now is very interesting, isn't it? And it's generating a lot of feelings, and you feel alive. When you feel something, you think that it's real. But that's just more Maya. So what I'm telling you is, if you would rather be happy and at peace than interested. Interested is mind focusing outward, getting involved in the movie, right? But if you don't want to anymore, that's fine. It's natural to say, listen, I'm done with sequels. So it's going to be like giving up crack, but if you don't want to be interested anymore, if you're done, I'm done, then I prefer peace and just perfect contentment over being interested. So once you find your consciousness going out or focusing on a thought or a sensation, are you happy? Are you content? And if peace and contentment is what you want, then you have to find thought-free awareness. That which is having the thoughts, that which is experiencing the sensations, that which is looking out of your eyes. That's the quickest way to peace. And when you're at peace, people around you will see that, and that peace will expand, and that's the quickest way to help everything and everyone. That's it.